What if I told you that the reason you can't stop thinking about them has less to do with them and everything to do with you? Because your mind doesn't get stuck for no reason. When someone takes over your thoughts, it's a signal, and if you learn how to read it, it will completely change how you see them and yourself. Think about it. Have you ever caught yourself replaying conversations, imagining what could have been, or wondering why they still cross your mind weeks, months, maybe even years later? That's not random. That's your mind trying to process something unresolved. Sometimes it's about closure you never had. Sometimes it's about the version of yourself you were when you were with them. And other times it's about the simple fact that you haven't found anything yet that feels as exciting, so your brain keeps you circling back. But here's the catch. Just because you can't stop thinking about someone doesn't mean they're the right person for you. It could mean you're holding on to the feeling of validation, attention, or even the fantasy of who they were in your head. And if this is already striking a chord with you, don't just listen passively. Stick with me, because I'm going to show you exactly how to break free from that mental loop, or use it to actually build the love life you want. There's something quietly unsettling about not being able to stop thinking about someone. You wake up and instantly they are there, appearing in your very first thought like a shadow wrapped tightly around your mind. You try to go about your day, but somehow their presence follows you. Every song feels like it carries a hidden message meant for you. Every silence feels like the space right before their voice is about to break through. It doesn't matter how much time has passed, how far away they are, or even how unreasonable your obsession might seem. You just can't shake them away. But here's what most people don't understand. When your thoughts are haunted by someone, it's not always only about them, it's also about you. The fixation is real, but so is the hidden message beneath it. You're not broken because you feel this way. You're not weak for being swallowed up by thoughts of someone who touched your life and left a mark that hasn't faded. But if you don't pause and carefully look at what your own mind is trying to reveal, you'll start confusing chaos with destiny. You'll mix longing with meaning, and you'll risk blocking your own growth, all because of someone who may not even realize the battle happening inside of you. Your thoughts are not random accidents, especially the ones that repeat endlessly. The mind is strategic, almost painfully so. It clings to what it believes is crucial for your survival. That person you can't stop thinking about. Your brain marked them as significant, so much so that it wove their presence into your emotional system. Maybe they gave you something you couldn't find anywhere else: attention, validation, intensity, or connection. Maybe they hurt you in such a way that your mind is frozen on the moment of impact, unable to let it go. Either way, your brain treats them like a puzzle that hasn't been solved, and it refuses to move forward until it believes the answer is found. But here is the tough truth: that person is just a symbol. The constant thoughts you circle around them are actually small fragments of something deeper. Your own need for meaning, for understanding, for wholeness. You've projected onto them an idea, a memory that isn't fully real. And the more you chase it, the more you drift from what actually exists. The modern world tells you to follow your heart, to chase what feels powerful and intense. But what if your heart is confused? What if the intensity you feel is only unresolved pain wearing the mask of romance? Nobody teaches you how to stop and study your thoughts with discipline. No one shows you how to question the emotional stories you've built around another person. And because of this, you remain stuck, not in love, but in fixation, caught in a loop that won't let go. The more you think about them, the more you give life to the story your mind has built. And soon, it's not the person who controls you, it's the story itself. That story becomes your prison. So what does it really mean when you can't stop thinking about someone? It means that something inside you has been triggered, and that inner part is asking not to be silenced, but to be understood. Your task isn't to chase them or to try erasing them from your memory. Your task is to get curious, deeply curious. Ask yourself, what does this person truly represent to me? What did I feel with them that I have struggled to feel alone? And why is that experience so rare in my life that I had to attach it to one specific person? If you don't explore these questions, your obsession will guide your decisions, and it will quietly distort your sense of worth. You'll start measuring your own value by whether they reach out, whether they look back, whether they miss you. And that's a dangerous trap, because the moment you do that, you hand over your power. You place your emotional center into their hands. You become like a satellite orbiting someone else's gravity. And every day you don't pull back, you drift further away from your own true path. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about waking up. It's about reclaiming authority over your own mind. When you can't stop thinking about someone, it's a sign that part of your identity has merged with theirs. And the way to heal isn't found in chasing them or trying to escape them, but in carefully separating your story from their presence. Your life has meaning that does not depend on whether someone stays, notices, or returns. But if you don't build that meaning for yourself, you will keep trying to borrow it from other people again and again. You need to grow into the person who can carry your own weight, not because you shouldn't feel deeply, but because emotions without guidance create disorder. Your obsession isn't proof of love, it's a mirror showing you where your boundaries are fragile, where your wounds are still raw, and where you've already handed away your strength. And once you see that clearly, really see it, you're left with a choice. You can keep spinning in circles, drowning in the imagined importance of this person, or you can begin grounding yourself in what's true. This isn't about locking away emotions. It's about leading them. It's about refusing to let your inner world be ruled by leftover emotions tied to someone else's shadow. Because your mind is valuable, your energy is sacred, and if you let your thoughts be hijacked by someone who no longer stands beside you, or worse, someone who never truly saw you, you are giving away the one thing you absolutely cannot afford to lose: your attention. Where your attention goes, your life follows. You are not here to be consumed by memories. You are here to build something forward, but you can't create the future if your spirit is trapped playing back old scenes. So the real question isn't, why can't I stop thinking about them? The real question is, what part of myself have I ignored that they seem to fulfill? That's where the real work begins, and that's where freedom is born. When your mind keeps circling around someone, it's tempting to call it love. It's easy to romanticize the obsession, to believe the constant emotional noise is some divine sign that they are meant for you. But that's rarely the full truth. In most cases, what feels like overwhelming longing is something else entirely. It's a signal, a warning that unresolved emotional wounds are sitting just beneath the surface. Your mind doesn't run in circles around people without cause. There is always a reason why certain individuals trigger these repeating patterns in your thoughts. It's not random, it's not poetic, it's a symptom of conflict, of an inner tension that hasn't yet been brought into the light, let alone healed. We like to imagine that our emotional experiences always belong to the present moment, that the person filling our mind must be important because they stir something so intense inside of us right now. But the truth is, they're often just the spark, not the fire. The fire was already there, waiting. That obsessive pull you feel, it didn't truly begin with them. It began long before. Somewhere in your own story, a pattern was set, a way of attaching, a style of interpreting closeness as either rescue or risk. And when someone enters your life and touches the exact nerve connected to that old pattern, your entire system lights up as if it's in danger or in desperate need of being validated. The human mind is built to detect patterns and protect survival. When a person enters your life and gives you even a glimpse of something your soul has been quietly craving, whether that's connection, recognition, safety, or simply the experience of being seen, your mind takes a snapshot. It records the moment and assigns it an enormous emotional weight. And once it has done that, the loop begins. But if that person pulls away or things start to become complicated, your brain doesn't simply let go. It treats the situation as if it's an unfinished problem that must be solved. It replays the moments again and again. It brings back the conversations, the looks, the gestures. It fills your mind with endless what-ifs, not because your mind wants to punish you, but because it believes this unfinished emotional experience threatens your inner balance. This is the stage where many people lose themselves. They assume their constant thoughts mean they've found the one. They believe the inability to move on is proof that the person is extraordinary beyond reason. But in reality, what's happening is that their inner world has been shaken. Their mind, desperate for resolution, keeps circling around the source of disruption, searching for peace that cannot be found in repetition. It isn't love that keeps them stuck. It's the unresolved weight of what that person awakened inside of them. To obsess over someone is often a way of avoiding a harder question. What am I scared to face within myself? That person may have triggered fears of being abandoned, deep insecurities about not being enough, or a wound you've carried quietly for years. Maybe they reflected back a part of you that you haven't learned to fully accept. Maybe they showed you a version of yourself you're trying to grow into, or reminded you of a version you've been trying to run away from. Either way, they became more than a person. They turned into a symbol, and your mind, trying to make sense of the symbol, got caught in the cycle. The most painful part is that it feels like your emotions have been hijacked. Your thoughts no longer feel like they belong to you. Your peace is stolen. Your sense of self begins to depend on whether this person pays attention, responds, or returns to you. But what you don't always see is that the conflict has moved far beyond them. It's no longer about the person, it's about you. It's about the fight between the side of you that wants to heal and the side of you that resists the discomfort of real healing. Fixation is not always a sign of deep love. More often, it's a warning that your emotional balance has been shaken. You've been knocked off center, and instead of returning to yourself to rebuild, you start placing your healing into someone else's hands. You unknowingly make them responsible for solving an emotional puzzle they never signed up for. To move forward, you first have to admit to yourself that your thoughts are not always trustworthy. Just because someone lives in your mind doesn't mean they belong in your future. Just because you can't stop thinking about them doesn't mean they are your fate. The mind is easily swayed by unresolved pain, and until you work through that pain, your emotional compass will keep pointing back to whoever activated it. That's why emotional discipline is so important. You must become the caretaker of your own thoughts. You must look at them honestly, without shame. Ask yourself, what does this obsession protect me from feeling? What truth am I avoiding because it hurts too much? Is it easier to keep thinking about them endlessly than to admit I've lost touch with myself? The irony is that the more you mentally chase the person, the further you drift from who you were before they entered your life. You start losing sight of your values, your dreams, your clarity, all for the illusion that if you think long enough and hard enough, you'll finally find peace. But peace doesn't come through obsession. Peace comes through understanding. And when you finally see that obsession is not proof of fate, but a sign of inner conflict, you begin to take your power back. You stop seeing the person as the solution and start understanding what they really were, a messenger. They came to awaken something inside of you. Maybe they exposed your fears. Maybe they gave you a mirror. Maybe they played a role they themselves weren't even aware of. But once that role has been played, the responsibility for healing falls on you. Your growth, your strength, your clarity, none of it depends on whether they stay or leave. It depends only on whether you are willing to face the part of you that felt so exposed in the first place. So the next time you find yourself drowning in thoughts of someone, remember this: the intensity of your thoughts is not proof of destiny. It is your mind's way of pulling you back to yourself. It is your soul's call for you to pay attention inward. And the sooner you listen, the sooner you return to your own strength. When a person lives in your head constantly, it's natural to think they must be hugely important to your story. But often the truth is less romantic. More often than not, the person you can't stop thinking about isn't the real center of your obsession. They are a stand-in, a symbol, a mirror reflecting a part of yourself that feels unfinished. You've placed onto them the role of carrying what you feel is missing in you, something you crave, something you long for, something you've either never fully had or believe you've lost. They become the container for your need, and the deeper the need, the stronger your thoughts cling to them. The human mind does not waste energy on what it believes is empty. If someone returns again and again to your awareness, it's because your subconscious has attached real meaning to them. But here's what most people miss. It's usually not about who they are. It's about what they represent. You're not obsessed with them. You're obsessed with the version of yourself you imagine when you're with them, or the feeling you believe only they can unlock in you. Maybe they made you feel seen in a way you hadn't experienced before, and that rare moment made your system hold on to it as if it were gold. Maybe they made you feel desired in a way that scratched the surface of an old wound, the kind that once told you that you weren't enough. This is the danger of emotional projection. When you haven't built certain strengths inside yourself, self-worth, confidence, security, acceptance, you start handing the responsibility for them to someone else. You unconsciously give them the job of making you feel valuable, loved, or safe. The more you believe they are the key to unlocking those feelings, the harder your mind will fight to keep them alive in your awareness. Not because of who they really are, but because of what your mind believes they hold for you. That's why you can become obsessed with someone you barely knew, someone who treated you poorly, or someone who was only in your life for a short time. Your conscious mind may be puzzled by the intensity, but your subconscious is very clear. This person has come to symbolize something you feel essential for your survival. And until you reclaim that part of yourself, until you take back the qualities you've been projecting outward, they will continue to haunt your inner world. There is an important difference between love and projection. Real love sees with clarity. Real love accepts the other person for who they truly are, without illusion, without exaggeration. But projection builds on fantasy. Projection fills in the empty spaces with your unmet needs. It places the other person on a pedestal not for who they are, but for what they stand for in your imagination. They turn into a symbol of possibility, not a real person. And when you expect someone else to provide what you haven't yet given yourself, you open the door to dependency, letdowns, and emotional chaos. Think about it. Why do we obsess over people who don't return the same effort? Why do we hold tightly to someone who walked away, who gave mixed messages, or who offered attention only to take it back later? It's because inconsistency creates scarcity. And when something feels scarce, we automatically assign it more value. You begin to believe that this person carries something rare, but the truth is the rarity isn't them. The rarity is the emotional feeling you attach to them. That's what you're chasing. That's what your mind is really after. The person is simply the container of that emotional state. But here's the freeing truth. You can create that state on your own. You can grow the same emotional experience you thought they were responsible for. You don't need to run after someone else to feel complete. What you need is to reconnect with the parts of yourself that you've ignored. And when you do, the obsession begins to fade, not because they changed, but because the power you gave away returns to you where it always belonged. This doesn't mean the pull disappears completely. It doesn't mean you'll never have moments where your mind drifts back to them. But once you see the projection for what it truly is, you stop being ruled by it. You stop letting your thoughts get stolen by the fantasy. And in that awareness, real healing begins. The escape from this cycle doesn't come from more calls, more talks, or waiting for closure. The way forward is through reclaiming yourself. You must become the very source of what you were searching for in them. If they made you feel important, you must begin to live like your life truly matters. If they made you feel beautiful, you need to see yourself with that same kindness and wonder. If they made you feel wanted, you need to start wanting your own growth, your own truth, your own company. This path isn't easy. It takes deep honesty. It asks you to face the parts of you that have been starved for too long, and it demands that you stop waiting for someone else to rescue you, because no one can save you from your own emotional projection. Only you can, but the reward is worth it. Freedom. When you stop projecting your unmet needs onto someone else, you become whole, and from that wholeness, everything changes. You attract differently, you love differently, you think differently. You are no longer pulled toward the people who reflect your old wounds. Instead, you are drawn to those who reflect your strength, your clarity, and your self-respect. And that shift changes your entire life. So if someone is living in your mind rent-free, pause and ask yourself, what do they really represent to me? What am I secretly hoping they will provide that I haven't yet claimed within myself? And how can I begin to give myself that gift today? Not tomorrow, not when they message, not if they return, but now. Because unless you do, you will continue to confuse projection with connection, fantasy with fate. And you deserve far more than that. You deserve truth. You deserve presence. You deserve the peace that comes only when your power is returned back to you. The person you can't stop thinking about isn't just taking up mental space, they are shaping your identity. Day after day, thought after thought, they turn into more than just a memory or a person from your life. You begin to shape your choices, your moods, even your self-worth around their presence or absence. And this is where the quiet damage begins. When someone takes over that much of your inner world, you start bending yourself to make room for them. Often you don't even notice you're doing it. You keep checking your phone, not because it makes sense, but because part of you has grown emotionally hooked to the idea of a reply. You start changing your behavior, your plans, your energy just to remain tied, even if only in your imagination, to someone who may not even be present in your life anymore. This is not love. This is surrendering your sense of self to a story that no longer serves you. One of the biggest dangers of deep fixation is how it slowly erodes your personal power. When someone dominates your thoughts, they begin to dictate your emotions too. You become reactive instead of intentional. If they're warm, you feel lifted. If they're distant, you sink. Your peace, your confidence, even your purpose begin to depend on their closeness and attention. And that's how you lose yourself, not in one dramatic fall, but slowly through thousands of small emotional choices where you choose them over your own center, your own clarity, your own healing. The most dangerous part is how it hides itself as hope. You convince yourself that the reason you can't stop thinking about them is because something deep or special must be at play. You tell yourself this obsession is proof of a rare connection or destiny or a love story unfinished. But that hope becomes the trap. You start living in an imagined future. You picture conversations, reunions, apologies. You stay stuck, not because you're incapable of moving forward, but because you're addicted to the version of reality where they finally prove your feelings were right all along. That version of reality runs like a movie in your mind. It gives you emotional highs, but it robs you of the present moment. It steals the time and energy you could be pouring into yourself, into growth, into something real and lasting. Here's what you must understand. The more you think about someone who isn't an active part of your life, the more power you hand them over your present reality. They don't have to speak a word, and yet they control your emotional climate. They don't have to be anywhere near you, and yet they dictate the speed of your healing. That is not connection. That is emotional captivity. And the only one with the key to that prison is you. This is not about becoming cold or shutting down your emotions. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about shifting your focus. When you notice yourself replaying them in your mind for the 100th time in a single day, stop and ask, what am I actually feeling right now? Am I lonely, insecure, hurt? Am I trying to escape something in my present life by running into the fantasy of what could have been?